Hello and welcome to Listen Bro. My name is Ethan and I am joined by my brother and co-host.
I am Joe.
And we're going to take turns telling stories. Joe doesn't know what I'm going to tell him, and I don't know what he's going to tell me. So our reactions are in real time with you as you listen. And I'm going to go first. So, Joe, you ready for a story?
Give me what you got.
All right. I'm going to talk about Lewis and Clark a little bit. As everybody knows, Lewis and Clark were explorers. They were sent west when the U.S. acquired the Louisiana Territory, which made up most of the Midwest and American West that we have today. Now, Lewis and Clark, it's Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. And Meriwether Lewis was born right around the time of the American Revolution, so early 1800s. Thomas Jefferson became president in the election of 1800, and he actually picked Meriwether Lewis to be his personal secretary. So he was working day in, day out with Thomas Jefferson. They lived in the same neighborhood, and I think it was like Thomas Jefferson's sister married one of the Lewises or something like that. So they had some family connections, but the reason Thomas Jefferson gave for picking Meriwether Lewis to be his personal secretary was that he had knowledge of the Western Territory and he was in the Army, so he knew the Army a little bit. One thing, though, that he did early on was help Jefferson transition from the Federalist Party presidency of John Adams into the Democratic-Republican Party administration of Jefferson. So this was the first time the U.S. was seeing a change in party with a new president. So he's trying really hard to deliver on, campaign promises or just what his party stood for.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that was the Democratic-Republican Party was going to make the military smaller. And Thomas Jefferson needed to know, basically, who gets to stay and who gets cut. So he had Meriwether Lewis, who was in the Army, so he would know people, and asked him which officers were competent or incompetent, and also what were their political leanings. So Jefferson used Lewis to help kick people out of the military, basically. Who did he force out? Who did he keep?
Yeah.
So obviously Jefferson trusted him quite a bit. And then when the United States acquired the Louisiana Territory, Jefferson asked Lewis to lead an expedition, and it was actually considered a military expedition, and he was the rank of captain, and he would be in charge.
Okay.
And he jumped on it. He loved the opportunity, so he obviously took it. And then he invited William Clark to join with him. And he knew Clark from his time in the Army, but Lewis wanted them both to be captains so that they would lead the expedition together.
Okay.
But Congress didn't approve Clark's promotion to captain. So technically, Clark was not a captain. Lewis was a captain. But they didn't tell the rest of the expedition that he wasn't a captain. They just told everybody, we are both captains. We are both leading this party. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I just learned that last night. And a lot of that information comes from Monticello.org, which is Thomas Jefferson's home was Monticello. So anyways, I'm going to breeze through some of this and get to some wild stories in a minute. But basically they meet up in St. Louis, put together a crew of people. They do some training over the winter. And then May of 1804, they set out on their expedition up the Missouri River. It's hard going. They're moving upstream, so they're fighting the current. Plus, if, any spots where the water's not very deep, then it's harder to move.
Yeah.
So it's pretty slow moving at first, and they only make it a couple hundred miles by winter of 1804. Fall into winter of 1804. And when winter set in, they stopped and set up camp, built shelters and stuff to stay for the winter in an area where there were already French trading. There was already French trading happening in the area, and there were I think, multiple Native American villages right there. So it was a place to set up where there would still be people around. They wouldn't
Yeah.
be out there on their own. Well, it's while they are camped there over the winter that they end up meeting Sacagawea.
Okay.
Now, some accounts say that Sacagawea's name is actually Sacagawea. It depends which tribe gave her that name as to which pronunciation is actually correct, but nobody can say definitively. In one tribe, it would be Sacagawea. In the other tribe, it would be Sacagawea. Anyways, they meet up with her. Now, she was like 15, 16 years old at the time. She was just a kid. The way they met her was she was married to a French guy named Toussaint Charbonneau. And this Charbonneau guy basically bought her from a Native American tribe to marry her. Now, you might think, why would a tribe sell one of their daughters? They didn't. She was already kidnapped from her tribe. So the tribe who kidnapped her sold her to this Charbonneau guy to be his wife. Well, Charbonneau, from what I understand, Sacagawea was one of two of his wives. So Charbonneau goes up to Lewis and Clark over this winter at some point and asks to join their expedition. He's a French guy. He was doing like fur trading. He had interacted with Native American tribes. He was like, hey, I can be a translator. I can help you on this trip. And you're going to need somebody to translate for you once you start moving west.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, okay, well, that's fine. We'll consider it. What languages do you speak? Well, he didn't speak English, so he was already talking to them through a translator. Charbonneau spoke French and some of the Hidatsa Native American language. He wasn't fluent. He spoke some. So they were like, okay, like, I don't know, you might not be the best translator. It's not like you're fluent in multiple, Native American languages.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, that's okay. I have my wife. She's fluent in Shoshone and Hidatsa, both Native American languages.
Okay.
But she doesn't speak French or English, so she would speak to Charbonneau in Hidatsa, which he understood some of.
Oh my goodness.
And then he could translate that into French. Now, another guy on their crew on the expedition with Lewis and Clark, George Drouillard, he was their translator. He spoke fluent English, French, and Shawnee, Native American language. And he also was fluent in, like, we have the American Sign Language. There was a Native American, they had an Indian Sign Language.
Really?
Pretty much all the tribes knew. So this George Drouillard could speak fluent English, French, Shawnee, and the Indian Sign Language. So Sacagawea ends up being brought on because she can speak Shoshone, which is a tribe that they would have to contact to get help crossing the Rocky Mountains eventually. And that was her original tribe that she was kidnapped from.
Okay.
She would translate Shoshone into Hidatsa, Charbonneau would translate Hidatsa into French, and then George Drouillard would translate that French into English.
Oh my goodness.
And then obviously you have the same thing in reverse. If Lewis wants to say something to a Native American tribe, then it goes from him in English to George Drouillard, who translates it to French, for Charbonneau, who translates it to Hidatsa, which he's only somewhat familiar with, and then Sacagawea translates it into Shoshone.
Oh my goodness. You ever send like one sentence through Google Translate through like 6 different languages? It's never the same.
No, it's worse than playing a game of telephone. Like you're changing languages 4 times. This is...
And one person isn't even fluent.
Right. Yeah, he knows enough to speak to his wife, I guess. But I don't know how fluent that is. So yeah, she was victim of kidnapping, victim of being sold as this guy's wife, and now she's being dragged along on this expedition. But she was probably a more valuable person on their expedition than her husband Charbonneau was, because he was terrible on the water. I don't think he could swim. Like, he just had all kinds of... He was kind of a weight on them. But anyways, now let's get into more of what I what I actually wanted to talk about. I just came across a couple of those things while researching and thought they were pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Little backstory.
Yeah. Yes, that kind of sets the scene. Everybody knows of Sacagawea, but like I didn't know most of that about her.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So what I thought would be interesting, though, is talking about Lewis and Clark and their expedition and their grizzly bear encounters. Because prior to them, there wasn't an established American West like you have after the Civil War, where you have the Wild West and gunfights and stuff. That didn't exist yet. The Louisiana Territory was French before the Americans got it. I think the Spanish owned it before that. So Lewis and Clark were kind of, the first ones to really go gather data, bring back, stories of what's out there. They were doing scientific research along the way, but they would talk to Native American tribes to get some help. And there, you had a few people like that Charbonneau, who was a French fur trader who had been in the area, but there wasn't like a group of 30 guys like they were bringing to go really explore the place.
Yeah.
So they'd heard stories of the grizzly bear. It wasn't called the grizzly bear yet, but they were hearing stories of the bear out west. But these guys were all familiar with the black bear in the east. So their escalation is really kind of funny to look through. And I found Lewis and Clark journals.unl.edu. It's from the University of Nebraska, but they have cataloged all of the journals of Lewis and Clark from their entire trip and have them organized by date. So I was able to, look up grizzly bear encounters and then go look up on this website, pull their journals. So what I'm going to read you some stuff that I pulled. These are from Lewis and Clark. This was, in their handwriting in their journals on the trip.
Okay.
So October 7th, 1804, like I said a few minutes ago, they started their trip in May of 1804, made it a few hundred miles, set up camp for the winter. This would have been sometime around when they were setting up camp, from what I understand. October 7th, this is from William Clark. He says, "Frost last night, past a river 90 yards wide. All the water of this river runs in a channel of 20 yards. The current appears gentle. I walked up this river a mile. Saw the tracks of white bear. Very large." That's all he has to say about it. And they would call it the white bear because you had the black bear in the east, and the grizzly bear was a lighter color, and sometimes they're like a yellow tan, not like brown. So the Native Americans were calling them white bears. So that's how they started. Saw the tracks of white bear, very large.
Mm-hmm.
So this is their first time crossing the tracks of a grizzly bear. And all he has to say is very large.
Yeah.
So go 13 days later, October 20th, 1804. Again, from William Clark. "The country through which I passed this day is delightful. Timber in the bottoms. Saw great numbers of buffalo, elk, goats, and deer. As we were in want of them, I killed 3 deer, our hunters 10 deer, and wounded a white bear. I saw several fresh tracks of that animal, double the size of the largest track I ever saw. Great numbers of wolves. Those animals follow the buffalo and devour those that die or are killed, and those too fat or poor to keep up with the gang." So, slight escalation. Somebody wounded a white bear.
Mm-hmm.
And he says those tracks were double the size of the largest he had ever seen. On that same day, October 20th, 1804, this is from Lewis. He gives a little different account. He says, "Peter Cruset this day shot at a white bear. He wounded him, but being alarmed at the formidable appearance of the bear, he left his tomahawk and gun, but shortly after returned and found that the bear had taken the opposite route. Soon after, he shot a buffalo cow, broke her thigh. The cow pursued him. He concealed himself in a small ravine."
Oh my goodness.
So he shot the bear. The bear turned and looked at him or something and scared him. And these were, early 1800s. We're talking muskets. It wasn't, it took time to reload the gun. So he left the gun and just took off running to get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Great. All right. Fast forward to the following spring. April 13th. Sacagawea at this point has already given birth to a child over the winter. So she has like a 2-month-old. And they waited for her to have the child, waiting for spring. And then they set out to continue up the river. Here's an account from Lewis from April 13th, 1805. We saw also many tracks of the white bear of enormous size along the river shore and about the carcasses of the buffalo, on which I presume they feed. We have not as yet seen one of these animals, though their tracks are so abundant and recent. The men as well as ourselves are anxious to meet with some of these bears. The Indians give a very formidable account of the strength and ferocity of this animal, which they never dare to attack, but in parties of 6, 8, or 10 persons, and are even then frequently defeated with the loss of one or more of their party.
My goodness.
So these are the stories that the Indians are telling them.
Yeah, they're saying don't go mess with the thing.
Yeah, like we don't go out in groups of less than 6, and even if we take 10, we usually lose 1 or 2 of our guys.
Yeah.
He continues saying, the savages attack this animal with their bows and arrows and the indifferent guns with which the traders furnish them. With these they shoot with such uncertainty and at so short a distance that they frequently miss their aim and fall a sacrifice to the bear. They're so bad with a gun that they stand too close to the bear and they miss. Goodness. And the person with the gun often is killed by the bear. It says, same journal entry, 2 were killed during the last winter in an attack on a white bear. This animal is said more frequently to attack a man on meeting with him than to flee from him. When the Indians are about to go in quest of the white bear, previous to their departure, they paint themselves and perform all those superstitious rites commonly observed when they are about to make war upon a neighboring nation. To go fight a bear, they prepare as if they're going to war.
My goodness.
So again, like in my mind, it's just like these guys are moving west. They start hearing about grizzly bears. They see some tracks. One of their guys shoots and hits one, but the rest of the, it wasn't like all of them have seen a bear. One of them saw one and shot it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just hearing these stories. So like, I can't imagine what's going through their mind.
Yeah, and they have to keep going further into bear country.
Right. And they know they're going to encounter them. And like, the way Lewis wrote there, like it's quite the story that the Native Americans are telling them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was April 13th. Let's jump forward 2 more weeks. April 29th. Lewis says in his journal, set out this morning at the usual hour. The wind was moderate. I walked on shore with 1 man. About 8 a.m. we fell in with 2 brown or yellow bear. Same thing. Brown or yellow instead of white, but still the grizzly. Both of which we wounded. One of them made his escape. The other, after my firing on him, pursued me 70 or 80 yards.
Oh my goodness.
But fortunately had been so badly wounded that he was unable to pursue so closely as to prevent my charging my gun. We again repeated our fire and killed him. It was a male, not fully grown. We estimated his weight at 300 pounds, not having the means of ascertaining it precisely. And then I kind of like the way he describes some of the stuff. He says, the legs of this bear are somewhat longer than those of the black, as are its talons and tusks, incomparably larger and longer. He's calling them tusks.
Yeah.
His teeth, like, oh, man. And then, I don't know if I should read this part or not. There's a section where he talks about the testicles. You want to hear it?
Sure.
He was out on a quest to gather scientific data, so whatever. He says, Lewis, in his journal, writes, the testicles, which in the black bear are placed pretty well back between the thighs and contained in one pouch like those of the dog and most quadrupeds, are in the yellow or brown bear placed much further forward and are suspended in separate pouches from 2 to 4 inches asunder. Necessary details, right?
Yep.
And he goes on to describe the animal a little bit more, but then he says, these are all the particulars in which this animal appeared to me to differ from the black bear. It is a much more furious and formidable animal and will frequently pursue the hunter when wounded. It is astonishing to see the wounds they will bear before they can be put to death. The Indians may well fear this animal, equipped as they generally are with their bows and arrows or indifferent fusees, But in the hands of skillful riflemen, they are by no means as formidable or dangerous as they have been represented.
Yeah, 300 pounds isn't a big one of those, though.
No, exactly. But, okay, so keep that last statement in mind. In the hands of skillful riflemen, they are by no means as formidable or dangerous as they have been represented.
Yeah.
All right, just remember that. Fast forward a little bit more. May 5th, 1805, so like a week and a half, 2 weeks later. William Clark writes, I went out with one man, George Dreyer, and killed the bear, which was very large and a terrible-looking animal, which we found very hard to kill. Ready? We shot 10 balls into him before we killed him.
10.
And five of those balls through his lights. Clark writes lights by other journals from the same day. When he says 5 of those balls through his lights, he means lungs. They shot 10 balls into him, 5 of them through the lungs.
Oh my goodness.
This animal is the largest of the carnivorous kind I ever saw. We had nothing that could weigh him. I think his weight may be stated at 500 pounds. And Lewis, in his journal entry from the same day, says, I think he's short by at least 100. The bear was at least 600 pounds, and that still might be a low estimate.
Wow.
Right, and then they took some measurements. They documented, from his nose to the end of his toes, his rear toes. 8 feet 7.5 inches, 5 foot 10.5 inches around the breast, 3 foot 11 inches around the neck. His claws 4 3/8 inches long.
Wow.
Yeah. They skinned him, divided him, oil. They'd cook up like you do with lard, cook the oil and put it in kegs for storage.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so another, week and a half later, May 14th, 1805. This is from Lewis. And I believe by this point they're in, North Dakota. It might be in North Dakota, South Dakota, North Dakota, or eastern Montana, somewhere in that stretch. They're still in the plains regions.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not even that far west yet.
No, they still have a ways to go before they hit the mountains. So May 14th, 1805, this is what Lewis writes. And some of these are going to start to get long, but they're worth it. In the evening, the men in 2 of the rear canoes discovered a large brown bear lying in the open grounds about 300 paces from the river, and 6 of them went out to attack him. All good hunters. 6 guys see a bear 300 yards from the river. Go out to attack him. They took the advantage of a small eminence which concealed them and got within 40 paces of him unperceived. So they took a low ground, got within 40 paces of him, probably about 40 yards.
Yeah.
Unperceived. 2 of them reserved their fires and had been previously concerted. The 4 others fired nearly at the same time and put each bullet through him. So they had 6 guys. They said, all right, 4 of us are going to shoot. You 2 hold your fire unless we need it. They put each bullet through him. 2 of the balls passed through the bulk of both lobes of his lungs. In an instant, the monster ran at them with open mouth. The 2 who had reserved their fires discharged their pieces at him as he came towards them. Both of them struck him. That's 6 rounds in him.
Mm-hmm.
Only one slightly, and the other fortunately broke his shoulder. This, however, only retarded his motion for a moment. Broke his shoulder, only slowed him down for a second. All right. The men, unable to reload their guns, took to flight. The bear pursued and had very nearly overtaken them before they reached the river.
My goodness.
2 of the party betook themselves to a canoe, and the others separated and concealed themselves among the willows, reloaded their pieces, each discharged his piece at him as they had an opportunity. They struck him several times again, but the guns served only to direct the bear to them. In this manner, he pursued 2 of them separately so close that they were obliged to throw aside their guns and pouches and throw themselves into the river, although the bank was nearly 20 feet perpendicular. He was chasing them so closely that they jumped off a 20-foot cliff into the river.
Wow. That'd be terrifying.
And let me read that line earlier. But in the hands of skillful riflemen, they are by no means as formidable or dangerous as they have been represented.
Yep.
So they've shot him, like, they started with 6. It says others reloaded and shot them as they could. So I assume that's at least a few more rounds.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Before they realized
continue.
that it was just attracting him to them.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so they jumped 20 feet into the river. So enraged was this animal that he plunged into the river only a few feet behind the second man he had compelled to take refuge in the water. The bear came in after them. When one of those who still remained on shore shot him through the head and finally killed him, they then took him on shore and butchered him when they found 8 balls had passed through him in different directions.
Oh my goodness. Wow. For the bear to dive off into the river after him, too, though.
This sounds like stuff out of a movie, but this is their... And this is one thing that I think is kind of interesting with their journals is they took, among the people on the trip, they took a lot of journals. They were supposed to come back and write a book, but they didn't. They didn't get around to it, basically.
Okay.
So, like, Lewis was supposed to publish a book about his expedition, which is where you would think if you're going to embellish stories, that's when you do it.
Yeah.
Is in writing the book, right? Like, your journals throughout the trip are going to be your source material for the book. So they're probably going to be, just a day-to-day recounting of what happened.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing, when you look through, like, their journals on that website, it wasn't just Lewis and Clark writing. They would both write daily or most days, and then a handful of other guys would also write. And they had all those things on there, and they all, like, all their stories lined up. Like, I don't think these are embellished.
That's crazy.
All right. So, 1 month later, June 14th, 1805, and this is the last grizzly bear story I have. But I read Lewis's journal from June 14th, 1805, like twice the whole way through last night. It was a very long one, but June 14th, 1805 is when he was exploring the Great Falls of the Missouri.
Okay.
So right around where I live, which is part of why I just like read it over a second time. So he spends like the entire first half. Basically, they came up on the first waterfall and they knew they would have to pull their boats up out of the water to get around it. So Clark and crew of guys are looking for a good place to pull the boats out. And Lewis, and this was kind of how Lewis was, is he would, if he knew something special was up ahead, like he knew they were coming up on the falls, so he kept leaving and he'd hike, 10, 15 miles ahead of the boats so that he would be the first one to see the falls. But he found the first set of falls and comes back and reports it, but he didn't go any further. So this day, June 14th, they're looking for a place to pull the canoes out of the water, carry them across land to get around the falls.
Mm-hmm.
He goes upriver and discovers 4 more falls. So his story is, telling about all of that, because he goes up, past the first one, and then it's like 2 miles upriver further is the next one. It's just a small one. And then right around a bend, he comes up over a hill, sees the next one, and he says, this is, the only waterfall I've seen more amazing than this one is the one just downstream from here. And then he sees like a mist coming from the valley that the river's in, off in the distance. He's like, well, I guess I should walk over there. So he goes further and sees another waterfall. This would be the final, the 5th and final one. And he says, this is the greatest waterfall I've ever seen, except for those 2 further downstreams. Like, this is just incredible. And he's all just thrilled about these waterfalls, seeing them, writing about them. And he says, he can look out, which kind of cool for me because I can picture exactly like where he is as he's describing, writing. He goes, I can see the river bend down to the south. The grass is, right at the same level as the water. There's no big hills down into it anymore. And there's another river that comes in from the west, and he sees a bunch of buffalo there. So that's where we're at. He's up on this hill looking out toward the southwest. Sees the second river meeting, which is right here in town in Great Falls. Here's his story. I descended the hills and directed my course to the bend of the Missouri River, near which there was a herd of at least 1,000 buffalo. Here I thought it would be well to kill a buffalo and leave him until my return from the river, and if I then found that I had not time to get back to camp this evening, to remain all night here, there being a few sticks of driftwood lying along shore which would answer for my fire, and a few shattering cottonwood trees a few hundred yards below which would afford me at least a semblance of a shelter. So he's like, I'm going to kill a buffalo. I've hiked far enough ahead of the boat that I'm not sure if I'm going to make it back tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Under this impression, I selected a fat buffalo and shot him very well through the lungs. And then he describes watching the buffalo die. Having entirely forgotten to reload my rifle, a large white, or rather brown bear, had perceived and crept on me within 20 steps before I discovered him.
Oh my goodness.
In the first moment, I drew up my gun to shoot, but at the same instant, recollected that she was not loaded, and that he was too near for me to hope to perform this operation before he reached me. So he's like, oh, shoot, I just realized I didn't load my gun after shooting the buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay. 20 steps away. As he was then briskly advancing on me, it was an open level plain, not a bush within miles, nor a tree within less than 300 yards of me. The riverbank was sloping and not more than 3 feet above the level of the water. In short, there was no place by means of which I could conceal myself from this monster until I could charge my rifle. In this situation, I thought of retreating in a brisk walk as fast as he was advancing until I could reach a tree about 300 yards below me. But I had no sooner turned myself about, but he pitched at me, open mouth and full speed.
Oh my goodness.
I ran about 80 yards and found he gained on me fast. I then run into the water. The idea struck me to get into the water to such depth that I could stand and he would be obliged to swim, and that I could, in that situation, defend myself with my espantoon. You know what that is, an espantoon?
Knife?
No, it's like a pole with a point on the end, but
Okay.
They used it to like signify the leader. So it was like a walking stick that had this little metal thing on the end, had a point on it. They could also use it as a rest for their rifles, which they did often. But he's basically saying, I ran into the water and turned around with that ready to go to start jabbing at the bear.
Yeah.
Okay. At this instant, he arrived at the edge of the water within about 20 feet of me. The moment I put myself in this attitude of defense, he suddenly wheeled about as if frightened, declined the combat on such unequal grounds, and retreated with quite as great precipitation as he had just before pursued me. As soon as I saw him run off in that manner, I returned to the shore and charged my gun, which I had still retained in my hand throughout this curious adventure.
Wow.
I saw him run through the level open plain about 3 miles till he disappeared in the woods on the Medicine River. It's actually the Sun River, but they were calling it the Medicine River at that point. During the whole of this distance, he ran at full speed, sometimes appearing to look behind him as if he expected pursuit.
My goodness. Nobody would believe him.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody would believe him. He's like, I scared it off.
Yeah. Oh, man. And so I didn't copy down any more of his journal, but basically he goes, oh, the other thing he saw while he was out there, he turned around. It's like, okay, I got to head back toward the boat.
Mm-hmm.
That same day, he saw a mountain lion. Right after his run-in with the bear, he saw a mountain lion.
My
and I
goodness.
think I forget exactly how it went, like the mountain lion pounced at him or hissed at him or something and then took off, and he went and observed the tracks. He was like, this looks like, the tracks of a cat.
Yeah.
And then he gets charged by 2 bull bison.
My goodness. And they're just starting to get into Montana, basically.
Well, they're
about
a ways
halfway in.
Yeah, they're kind of getting to where they're starting to hit the mountains.
Yeah.
But he goes through all, grizzly bear, mountain lion, bison, and he basically says, I've decided that I have to go back to the boat. If I try to camp out here tonight, I will definitely be killed based on just the past few minutes.
Yeah.
And he also said, I decided that my gun would never be unloaded for longer than the amount of time it takes to load the gun. It's like, I will
Yep.
never
Yep.
leave it
He
unloaded
learned from his
after
lesson
firing.
there.
Yeah. And then he hikes back to the boat, but he's like 15 miles out. And this is like evening that he turns to head back. So it takes him a while. He doesn't get back to the boat until after dark.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out alone that day. And when he got back, all the guys on the expedition were planning which direction each person was going to look for his body the next morning.
Oh, my goodness.
Because they just assumed he had died somewhere. He had been killed.
Wow.
So he said, yeah, I'm never leaving my gun unloaded, and nobody is going off by themselves ever again.
Yeah. Wow. Well, imagine if he did have his gun loaded and he shot the bear.
Right.
He would have just made it mad.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he's probably lucky that it wasn't loaded, because it would have definitely charged him.
Yeah. And the only reason he's like, the bear didn't want to follow me into the water. So it turned around and left. But yeah, the more I kept finding the stories, and like I just stopped there. I was like, I think I have enough stories. I might look for more at some point, but just
just getting further into the mountains, it's got to be crazy, the stories that they have.
And from what I was trying to get accounts of, all of their first encounters. So I believe that's every encounter they had with a grizzly bear up until, that June 14th day of the trip. So I'm pretty sure that's all of them up to that point, but they start with, oh, we saw some tracks. Oh, we saw one. Somebody shot it, but it ran off. And then they kill one. You say, like, it's not that tough of an animal if you have guns.
And then one about bests them with 6 guys that shoot it.
Right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and, like, I just don't know what to even compare that to. Like, I think the closest thing in my mind is, like, if you started exploring some uncharted land, like, I don't know, if we start settling Mars, crew goes to Mars, they're like, hey, go on a trip, go explore the place. And then you come across, like, a T-Rex.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we've heard of these things. We have an idea, what they ate, how they acted, but we've never encountered one in person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they were. I mean, they were writing back to the president telling him, this is what we found. These are different than black bears. The stories that the Indians have been telling us are obviously true.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just think it's a funny progression from...
Yeah. Yeah, we got some big tracks.
Yeah.
It was fairly easy to kill.
Yeah, as long as you have good riflemen. They're like, we had 6 good riflemen who put 8 bullets through the thing before it died.
Yep.
And
imagine going
them.
back to the camp, though, and being like, guys, I scared off a grizzly bear.
Right.
Nobody would believe you.
Yeah. So funny. I would love to do more research on them. There's so much from their journey, too, but just the grizzly bear encounters, man, they're so entertaining to read.
Oh, I bet.
So that's the end of my story.
All right. Well, yours was pretty good. I can tell you right now, mine's not going to take anywhere near as long as what yours did.
That's mine. Mine grew quite a bit last night because I found like one good story and then another good story, and I was like, I just want to keep looking for more.
Okay. So, did you ever hear about the space shuttle Columbia? Columbia? Yeah, sorry. That got destroyed on its way down, like on its descent?
Yeah, that one destroyed coming back into the atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, we'll come back to that, but that plays a small part in this.
Okay.
In Alaska, there's an area about 250 miles south of Fairbanks that takes up 33 acres that is just loaded, like fully fenced in and fully filled with giant antennas.
Okay.
And they were built by the military and the defense agency. And they were being very secretive about it. And people started really being paranoid about it because not long after that, there was an earthquake that happened, and it was one of the worst ones recorded in that area. And basically, they were thinking that the government was starting to do testing using these antennas that was going to control the weather and natural disasters. Also, people were thinking it was mind control as well.
Okay.
And that's why there were so many suicides going on in Alaska. But another theory that people had was that the Space Shuttle Columbia was actually, the pilots were mind controlled by it, and that they destroyed the ship themselves, basically, from the inside out. Like, they triggered a self-destruct, basically.
Really?
Yeah. So, hold on one second. Basically, this happened quite a while ago. I don't have the exact date of when they put up the antennas, but the government was very secretive about it, was not telling anybody what it actually was for a long time. And they finally came out and released what the antennas are for. It's called HARP. It's an acronym that stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. So they were just studying northern lights.
Yeah.
This whole time. They were just studying the upper atmosphere where northern lights are located.
But you said the military was involved.
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep. But people didn't believe that. People did not buy that at all. So now, after more years after they released that that's what it is, they're now holding an open house, and you can schedule a tour to go through the entire area and see for yourself that they're not controlling the weather, they're not mind controlling people. Like, there's a whole article out about, like, hey, please come and look at this to see for yourself that we're not doing anything wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so now you can go and visit the place that basically just sends high-frequency radio waves into the atmosphere. But in the past, like, year or so, they started using that to target the one moon of Jupiter. They're trying to test radio wave stuff on that now. And that started up the whole conspiracies again about it. And nobody believes them. Because they're like
recent they're using it?
Yes. On the for studying the moon and Jupiter, and everybody's like, okay, if these antennas were only supposed to be able to reach the upper atmosphere, how are they reaching a moon on Jupiter now? Like, how isn't there more going on?
That's what I was going to say. Radio waves don't.
Yeah.
Like, I think you'd have to be line of sight to it, but I doubt that you'd get a signal that strong.
Yep. So that started a whole slew of conspiracy theories now with it. Because, okay, yeah, you're inviting us to come see it, but now people are saying that there's a underground area there that they're doing a lot more than what they're showing the public. So mine was pretty short.
Yeah. Well, and so think about, what if they opened up, said, hey, you can buy tickets to tour Area 51. Do you really think people would believe that they're showing you everything that's going on?
Oh, there's not a chance.
Like, it doesn't matter how much they would show people on that tour. People would come back and say, yeah, we didn't see any aliens or, super secret stuff, but there's stuff that they didn't show
But there
us.
was a door that I saw that they wouldn't take us near.
Yeah.
And that would just start a whole slew of things.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd imagine that popped up in, like, Cold War time frame.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like, my thought, I thought maybe where you were going with that at first was, like, missile warning system, something to detect a missile coming from Russia.
Ah.
That's what
Yeah, it
your
didn't
first
say
thought.
anything about that on the articles I was reading. I was looking at the Smithsonian Magazine
Okay.
is what was releasing these stories.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, like you said,
But
the military.
they're also doing some stuff with like figuring out how to create artificial aurora borealis as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Which, like, those come from solar flares.
yeah. Yep.
Like, I don't know how you could recreate that.
But there's so much open-ended stuff with this that like they'll say, "Oh, we're using it for this," but okay,
Mhm.
that doesn't explain this side of it though.
Right.
So everybody's still
Let's like.
paranoid with it.
I just think military involvement with something that sounds like it's purely scientific research doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, the Fairbanks College, the one professor there is part of the research being done there, and she's helping head the tours.
Mm.
She was the one that came out and was like, "Please come and look. See, there's nothing going on."
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
the defense agency was part of building it.
Right. Yeah.
So I can see the missile detection
Right.
side of it. Like that would make sense. But
Yeah.
why were those like it specifically was Air Force, Navy, and the defense agency that put it together.
Yeah.
But there's
That's
so
interesting.
many stories with it. The coincidence of a really strong earthquake happening not long after that they had that up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, just unexplained.
And like as with anything that has conspiracy theories, it's like when the government gives you an explanation, oh, this is what we're doing with this facility. We're using it to study the aurora borealis. Do you really trust that?
Yeah. Yep.
It's like that's the official story, but
Yep. The official story for the Space Shuttle Columbia was that a piece of insulation foam came out and hit the left wing. And that's what caused it to basically self-destruct on the way. Like,
yeah, it was like it
returned
lost
Earth, so.
the insulation. I don't know if maybe that knocked more insulation off the wing or what, but just losing the insulation would cause it to heat up to the point of exploding.
But if it was so destroyed in the explosion, how do you know that that's what caused the explosion?
Right.
But I don't get how people are saying that a rocket that was landing, I believe it was in Kansas or Arkansas or something, that the rocket was coming down, or not the rocket, the space shuttle was coming down to land. How is antennas in Alaska?
Mind controlling.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's one thing about conspiracy theories is they don't always make sense.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But
I kind of got down a rabbit hole with this one. I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and like when the official story doesn't satisfy people, they'll start coming up with stuff.
Yeah. And then they start doing the research on the moon, like on Jupiter. Like,
right. Yeah.
there's a little more.
Why would you be doing that from Alaska?
Yeah.
You know, why we've sent satellites.
Exactly.
We've sent stuff to go retrieve information from deeper in the solar system. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I wonder. Well,
that's all I had.
Yeah. I guess that's a wrap for anybody who listened. Thanks for checking it out. If you enjoyed it, leave a rating, leave a comment, leave a review. Any of those things. Tell a friend. And we'll be back with more stories, and you never know what it might be.
Yep. We will both just pick our own random topic and get raw reactions from the other.
Exactly. Okay, bye.